Tokyo was sleeping, paying no attention to my problems. The night, the multi-million-person metropolis felt absolutely lifeless. Even the street lamps seemed to have dimmed their lights, trying not to wake their sleeping inhabitants. I was lying in my bed, staring at the ceiling. I looked around the room a couple of times. Something was wrong. Out of place, maybe. Or something was missing. I was trying to figure out what exactly was the matter in the dark, but after a while it dawned on me that the letter wasn't on the table. Had Himitsu taken it? Like I cared. Winter is better than summer. There's no salvation from heat, but you can escape the cold via a warm sweater and a traditional Japanese katatsu. We would make a snowman, light up the Christmas tree lamp, eat tangerines and Russian salad. And early in the morning, we'd run to look what presents Father Frost brought us. If only things were as simple now as they were when we were little. I hadn't wanted to grow up, hadn't asked for all these problems and complications, and no one ever does, bud. Why did everyone else, Kyosuke, Michael, even Saya-chan, live the lives of normal teenagers while mine resembled some kind of melodrama with elements of tragedy? How would our fates have turned out had my parents not decided to emigrate from the USSR, I wondered. They would have probably still been alive, and both Himitsu and Catherine probably would have been happier, which meant it was all my fault. Catharsis, the redemption through suffering, was, I guess, the only thing that really helped me. I drove my flagellating introspection to its highest point, convicted myself of all the mortal sins, served as the judge, the prosecutor, and the jury, and found myself guilty. And only after that did I manage to fall asleep. Damn. I missed out on a whole lot of shit. Good lord. So where are we starting from, huh? Sometimes life gives you a second chance. All you needed for it is a good night's sleep. The events of the past day had already faded, so it no longer brought me as much pain. The storm had passed, and I was standing on the deck watching it go. My existential skiff had somehow avoided being crushed and was all over now. But I'd almost slipped up. Maybe the only thing Himitsu wouldn't have tolerated was self-pity, even if it manifested like this. Sunday morning started peacefully as usual, as it's probably the only day when all, or almost all, Japanese people rest. It's time to be with your family and deal with housework. I remembered it was Himitsu's big cleanup day. Did that mean I wouldn't see her? On the one hand, that was a good thing. Both needed to cool down. But I did feel bored. For the first time in a long while, I had a quiet day. And what did I do? Grumble at the thought that my life might finally return to its normal course. The breakfast seemed insipid and somehow wrong. After a couple minutes, I couldn't even remember what I'd been eating. TV didn't entertain me with the contents of its box, and I hadn't bought any new games for a while, was bored with the old ones, and printed letters danced circles in front of my eyes. Now, isn't this something? Just a week ago, I could spend the entire weekend bumming around. Maybe it wasn't about being bored after all? Yesterday's evening with Himitsu distracted me from the thoughts about Catherine, but nothing had really changed. Maybe I wasn't as sensitive about her being less than 1,000 miles away from me anymore, but I couldn't solve the problem by ignoring it. A phone call interrupted the disorder of my thoughts. I forced myself to answer it. Hello? Awake so early? Weird. It took me too long, really, to recognize the voice. I definitely hadn't expected to hear her. You still remember my phone number? Have it written down. Oh yeah, of course. What was I hoping for? What do you want? Aren't you rude today? Woke up on the wrong side of the bed? I distinctly imagined her smirk. Rude? You bet, after what happened yesterday. When she just ditched me at the bar. You mean the note? What else could I mean? You know, I even believed it for a second. I even came. She didn't answer immediately. So did I. Yeah? But you weren't there at 8. The bartender told me that you had left 3 hours before. That's correct. Suddenly Catherine's voice grew firm. You didn't expect me to sit there for 3 hours, did you? So it's just another trick of yours? No, I was just waiting. In a different place, outside. But you didn't come. I did. Not at 8. Yeah, maybe I was a couple minutes late, so what? I think you had enough time. Except that I had spent the day with Himitsu in the amusement park, and therefore I hadn't found the note on time. There was no reason for Catherine to know that. I came as soon as I could. What do you want from me, then? I don't want anything. You're the one who called. You're right about that. She smirked. I guess I shouldn't have, judging by your reaction. Katya, I'm a human being, too. No one doubts that. You know, maybe I am in the wrong here. All these notes and secrets. It's not my style. I figured. What do you mean? Nothing, really. Just a couple of days ago, I seriously considered Catherine to be the person who had left the note at my door. Yeah, no, that'd be crazy, right? As it turned out, she signs hers. Do you still want to talk? I couldn't see her face, but wasn't sure I would have been able to read her emotions even if she'd been right in front of me. I would like to talk, but our conversations can hardly be called a dialogue as of late. I'll see you in the city center in 2 hours. Okay. And don't be late this time. Catherine almost commanded me and hung the phone. You bet I won't. I said into the silence and went to my room to dress up. I didn't fancy the idea of coming to the meeting early and spending however long wandering there alone, so I was just sitting at the doorstep looking at Himitsu's house. Today was their big cleanup day, right? For me too, perhaps. A big mental cleanup day. I could open the windows and air out the smell of dead feelings, throw away my musty thoughts, scrub the rust off the wrinkles in my brain, and polish my skull. A visit to the psychologist is a common occurrence in American movies. It isn't as widespread in Japan, and I'm not sure whether psychologists even exist in the USSR. I could probably use one. Himitsu's father's car approached the house. I gave him a nod of greeting, and he responded likewise. I wondered, would I already have a bullet in my head if Himitsu had told him everything that happened between the two of us lately? Wow, interesting phrasing, my guy. Weird that you say it like that, huh? Or would a for sale sign appear on the front of their house? Wow, yeah, no, would they just pack up and leave, right? That'd be wild. Her father, Ryunosuke-san, was too Japanese. I didn't remember her mother well, but she had seemed more friendly. I wonder if they ended up divorcing. There was still an hour before the meeting with Catherine. If I walked slowly, I'd be right on time. Sometimes I thought that normal Japanese people only had 2 sets of clothes, a business suit and a casual outfit, only worn on weekends. And for their casual look, everyone went nuts. I wasn't really obsessed with fashion, but still trying not to stand out in a bad way. Although in Tokyo, a tall European guy always stands out, no matter how he's dressed. A man had approached me on the street once and gave me the business card of a modeling agency. After that, I spent an entire evening looking at myself in the mirror and trying to figure out in what way I resembled a model. The clock in the window of the shop across the street told me it was the time we'd agreed to meet at. Tick-tack, tick-tock. I almost had enough of this. Catherine was just about half an hour late. She decided to dump me again. Okay, I think we're back to where we were. Because I think this is where she invites him to her place. He has this sudden realization about the note and all that. Okay, so I think we're back to where we were. I think I'm gonna start skipping again. I'm sure there might be some slight dialogue differences now in the scene because we went with Himitsu instead of Catherine that time, but if there's anything major, we'll cut to it. Until then. Alrighty, so we're all caught up. Apparently, along my journey, I have made I made quite a few pro-Catherine choices, as it would seem. But this is where the skip dumped me off at. This is right up to where we were after we had bolted away from Ryunosuke, ran towards the house. Obviously, when we got here last time, we found the pink elephant inside. Who knows what we're going to find this time? Like I said, I do have to end this recording session here. It's probably going to be like last time where I'm like right at the end of the route. And like the next time I fucking boot it up, I'm going to finish it. But regardless, you know, I missed out on that whole amusement park scene, which I'm sure was massive. But also, if we look at my load games here, there were a couple other choices that I messed up on. Obviously, that was the first one, the go for a walk or stay home. That's where I missed out on the whole amusement park date. This conversation here with Saya. Apparently, when I said it's none of your, when I said I'm going through a rough patch, that was actually a pro Catherine choice. Going for a walk was the right move. Telling him that was the right move. Going to the bar was the right move. For the most part, I made the right moves. Like, now that I'm looking at it, this was the big fuck up, though. I think this was the major fuck up. I don't think this was as bad, but this right here was the big fuck up. Missing out on that amusement park date, I think, played a huge part in why I fucked up the route. Because obviously then you don't understand the sentiment behind the elephant, maybe. Because maybe he's about to walk in there, right? And the elephant's still there. But he'll have, like... But because, you know, you actually had that moment, I don't know. But obviously I have it nice and saved right here. So, like I said, I am going to end this recording session here for today. It's either going to be a jump cut or a new video, but regardless, I will see y'all in the next one. Until then, peace. What is up, everyone, and welcome back to Love, Money, Rock and Roll. In the previous recording session, we wrapped up Kagome's route and started on Himitsu's route, and I have a feeling we're just about towards the end of Himitsu's route. And it's been a very interesting journey. Once again, I wound up getting a bad end, but this one time it wasn't like a blatantly obvious bad end. Like with Kagome, I knew making the wrong choice that I'm like, okay, I know this is not going to end well, and it didn't. With Himitsu, no, it was a choice I completely had no idea was going to have, negative consequences. Had huge negative consequences. We saw a bad ending, which wasn't quite as bad as the bad ending we got with Kagome. At least with this bad ending we got from Himitsu, Nikolai actually lived. That's definitely a step up. But no, I went back. We saw the amusement park scene, which was the one choice we had been lacking, which also it made that last moment not pack as much of a punch in the bad ending where she leaves like the stuffed animal on the table. It's like, what's the importance of the stuffed animal? Oh hey, we actually know that now. That's crazy. But yes, we're here. We're probably going to wrap up Himitsu's route. So without further ado, let's just jump back into it, shall we? I had to wait for too long. Or maybe the time was passing too slowly. Finally, I heard those same steps behind the door, as if someone was dragging something heavy along the floor. Oh, I see. He's walking in on her as she's setting that up. He managed to get there in... Okay, so the difference is, in the bad ending, he doesn't get here on time, and then good ending, he shows up right on time. Perfect. Oh no. It's Grandma. Well, I mean, still, it's right on time, because she hasn't left yet, so I mean, hey. The door moved aside, and Himitsu's grandmother appeared from behind it. Nika-kun? She was clearly not happy to see me, and wasn't even trying to hide it. I need to talk to Himitsu, I said firmly. It was a good thing I managed to catch my breath. Ryunosuke told me not to, she replied after a pause. Sympathy and seemingly understanding reflected on her wrinkled face. Apparently, she decided that it made no sense to pretend any further. It's very important, both for her and me. Fine. Grandma finally agreed and stepped aside. I ran inside and shouted, Himitsu! How many years had passed since I last came here? The house looked exactly like in my childhood memories. Himitsu peeked out of the next room. Nika-ken? And as luck would have it, I couldn't find the right words at the most important moment. Moreover, I couldn't say anything articulate at all. Nika-ken, why are you here? She took a few steps toward me, but stopped, as if hesitating. Yesterday. I thought you understood. We have nothing to talk about. Then just listen to me. I pulled myself together. I love you. I realized it way too late, but I want you to know it. I know that there's no forgiveness for what I've done. I understand that you've tolerated a lot from me for a long time, and I'm grateful for that. I'll accept any answer. Your happiness is what matters the most to me. Himitsu was standing and staring, unblinkingly, as if through me. You said before that you loved me, and then you went back to your Katya. No, I didn't go back to anyone. It was a misunderstanding. Maybe I was telling the truth, but I knew that she had heard so many lies that sounded just like this that it was unlikely she'd believe it. Catherine has nothing to do with all this. I understand what it looks like, but I'm not lying. Of course, I should have dealt with her as soon as she returned. I'm sorry about that too. I just had to talk to you before... But mentioning Ryunosuke-san and his threats would be unfair. Then Himitsu simply wouldn't have a choice. Before I leave, forgive me if you can. Nika-ken. She lowered her head. It's nobody's fault but mine. I ruined everything myself. I realized too late what really matters to me in life. Nika-ken. I didn't appreciate what was most important to me. I took it for granted, thinking it wouldn't go anywhere. But most importantly, it was something I needed as much as air to breathe. I have nothing without you, and I need nothing without you. Nika-ken. Himitsu was crying. On instinct, I came closer to comfort her, but froze in place. I had no right to do that now. The sound of a car engine came from the yard, then I heard voices. Maybe we'll never see each other again. Don't forget me. Remember that we had a lot of good moments, not just bad ones. And you need to know that I wasn't doing it to hurt you. I'm just like this. And forgive me for everything. Nika-ken. I heard loud steps in the hall, and the next moment Ryunosuke-san burst into the room. didn't really understand what I was doing, acting almost subconsciously. Aw, hell yeah! I grabbed Himitsu and kissed her. She jumped in surprise but didn't try to resist. Nikolai! I heard her father's voice from somewhere at the edge of my mind. I wasn't paying attention to him, only looking into her green, wide-open eyes. There were no more tears in them. The eyes that were always the first thing I saw waking up in the morning. In an instant, all our happy moments flew before my mind's eye, from making a snowman when we were little to that ridiculous pink elephant. Yes, I had loved Himitsu my entire life, just never understood that there also existed this kind of love, so different from the infatuation I had developed for Catherine. Finally, our lips came apart. Himitsu never responded to the kiss and lowered her head again. Well, you had your tender moment. Now get out of here! Ryunosuke-san shouted.
No, Dad.
Himitsu said in almost a whisper, still looking at the floor. What?
No, Dad, enough.
She repeated louder.
You've decided enough for me. I'm not a child anymore.
Oh, that's a new face. Suddenly she turned to him, clenched her little fists, flashing her eyes.
I love Nika-kun, and neither you nor anyone else can change that. You might think it's wrong and that I'll be unhappy, but it's my choice. And if you think Nika-kun isn't perfect, even if it's true, I'm the one who's going to live with him, not you.
I froze, forgetting to breathe.
Even if you think he's done something wrong, I know for sure that Nika-kun hasn't done anything bad. He's lived through so much. You just have no right to treat him like this. You can't treat us like this. Maybe we won't be happy the way you see happiness, but we're okay with living like that. And the fact that we're together doesn't stand in the way of your job, no matter what it is you really do.
Himitsu turned to me and looked at me pleadingly.
We love each other.
I couldn't resist looking at Ryunosuke-san triumphantly. Take that. Of course I shouldn't have, but that's how I was. That's what Himitsu was talking about. This is beyond all reason. He sighed and leaned against the wall.
Sorry, Dad, but you'll have to accept my choice.
She came up right next to me and took me by the hand.
Or he leaves, but he'll leave with me.
Ryunosuke-san turned pale, deep wrinkles appearing at the corners of his eyes. Do you even realize what you're doing?
I do.
And you? He looked at me, but with no anger, more like asking me for help. Fine. After all, I really can't live your life for you. But if you two think that everything will be just as easy going forward...
Even if it won't, we'll stay together.
Dreams of youth. Ryunosuke-san smirked. Have it your way. We need to talk. Don't worry, I'm not going to do anything to him. He anticipated Himitsu's possible indignation. In private. It's just for a bit. Everything's going to be alright. I squeezed Himitsu's hand tighter, then released it and walked to the yard with her father. Hell yeah. You should understand what you're getting into, Nikolai. He started immediately. To be honest, I don't care about you. I'm only worried about my daughter. You may put her at risk. The problem is that I still understand nothing about what's going on. Ryunosuke-san looked a bit upset, and I even caught what seemed to be pity in his expression. What's your relationship with the KGB? I then remembered that I had given Irina a fat load of bullshit about the documents I was supposed to have found at Ito's place, and about me knowing more than I really did. What was more important, I had agreed to contact them next week. Well, I don't have a relationship with them. It's not that simple. Is simple your favorite word or something? How could things possibly be any more complicated? He grinned suddenly, took out a cigarette case, raised his eyes to me, and smiled apologetically. Can't quit smoking. Cosmos. Soviet ones. Japanese person with a cigarette case was something new to me. Especially a case of Soviet cigarettes. He took a long pull and continued. So what can you tell me? And you? Otherwise, it's a little unfair. No, it's quite fair. And right. The less you know, the less risk you pose for Himitsu if anything happens. Ryunosuke-san, she's not one of your agents to even be at risk. That doesn't change anything. I sighed heavily and thought about it. Telling him everything here and now meant acknowledging him as an ally. Trusting a person that I considered an enemy just a minute ago. Yeah, didn't seem like he had much choice now. No matter what, he had to reconcile with the fact that Himitsu had chosen me. However, he had shown more than once that he was ready to do anything to achieve his goals. What will I get in return? Will you protect me from the Russians, the corporation? The corporation is no threat to you. and I don't know the Russians' intentions. Yeah, right. You managed to lie twice in a short sentence without batting an eye. I want to be clear about one thing right away. Ryunosuke-san, are we on the same side now? He took his time to answer my question. I am on Himitsu's side, so as long as she is on yours. It's hard to believe you when you talk like that. You don't have to believe me. The more soberly you view the situation, the better. So what do you know? My whole body tensed up. Something inside me, maybe my sixth sense, wouldn't let me tell him the entire truth. The Russians have contacted me several times and asked for some papers, documents, information about my father's work. But I know nothing about it. I've already told you this, and I told them. Sorry, but I'm not ready to believe that the KGB are complete idiots. If they contacted you, they must have had their reasons. Reasons? I rolled my eyes. Looks like all of you, no matter the country, think that me being Russian is enough of a reason. That does certainly play a role. Whatever my father was doing, I know nothing about it. I was listening to my own voice as if from outside myself. It was fervent and confident, even though I was lying. Perhaps Ryunosuke-san knew about these ballistic missiles, but so far it was the only piece of information I could latch onto. Perhaps the only one that could save my life in the future. There was still the question of Irina, who would be waiting for my call. I was jumping into these spy games head on again, forgetting about Himitsu. So what will happen? To us. After finishing his cigarette, Ryunosuke-san wanted to drop the roach on the ground, then remembered something and fearfully, like a child, cast a glance at the house and put it out with his fingers. There's something so simple and understandable about the way he did it. I didn't just fear Himitsu's father. I also respected him. But he wasn't omnipotent. There were some questions he, too, had no answers for. There were situations that could confuse him and things that could scare him. So could he protect us? After all, the most important thing for me now was to be with Himitsu. No matter where, in Tokyo, surrounded by KGB spies and the corporation's agents, or here, drowning in the boredom and monotony of a Japanese village. I imagine Himitsu would prefer to go home. Yes, but... Or do you not want to return to Tokyo for some reason? His face became emotionless again, the professional expression of an experienced intelligence officer. May I talk to Himitsu about it first? I decided to avoid giving a straight answer. Of course. Ryunosuke-san responded coldly and returned to the house. Before I came up with the proper words, Himitsu appeared on the doorstep.
Nika-kun, what's the matter?
Let's talk somewhere else. We walked some 30 meters away from the house.
Nika-kun?
She was blinking at me in surprise. Your father's offering to return us to Tokyo.
That's great, isn't it?
Yeah, great. On the one hand, but people might be waiting for me there who I don't want to meet, and now these people might be waiting for you too. Himitsu gave it a moment of thought, but then said confidently,
Dad will protect us.
I don't want to say anything bad about your father. Maybe I should have, though. Just a couple hours ago, he was more or less threatening to kill me. But he also has his limits.
Then what are we supposed to do?
That's a good question. What were you going to do here alone?
Well, I hadn't really thought about that.
Himitsu lowered her eyes and blushed. What do you mean you hadn't thought about it?
I thought that sooner or later things would sort themselves out.
Are you serious? I exclaimed. Naturally, I'd never suspected Himitsu to be an outstanding strategist, but to be so passive and apathetic about her own fate was too much, even for her.
I was just very angry with you.
She pouted and half-turned from me. Blessed innocence, I said in Russian. She looked at me, puzzled, but I said abruptly, never mind. So then I couldn't count on Himitsu. My only hope was that Ryunosuke-san would do everything he could to protect his daughter. And as for me, I could only rely on myself, and deal with problems as they came. You're such a fool of mine. I pulled Himitsu closer, grabbed her by the waist, and kissed her.
Nika-kun.
She tried to push me away, weakly, more for the sake of decency. Don't worry, nobody's watching. Well, Tokyo it is then. I sighed.